Welcome to the 27th video, folks. We are on the bulkhead, and this video sees the bulkhead painted and finished and fitted, which is fantastic news. So here we are. I've got the pegs now tacked in place. I'm getting the bulkhead off the chassis in order to do some full-on welding there, get those properly structurally attached, and then I can get into the repairs and painting. Right, those are all welded up now. Where I needed to, I put little plates of steel in where there was big gaps to fill. Otherwise, the welder filled the gaps quite nicely. So that's it now for construction. Right, I've been cleaning. I'm exposing stuff like this. It's not cool. This is this, in brackets, seam sealer that's come out. Looks a lot like silicone sealer to me. This is depressing. It's really very depressing. I told the owner I didn't want him to do any thin metal work. It's not my speciality. I'd take it on for a project for myself, but not for someone else. I can't vouch for my workmanship. And here I am looking at this. Right, let's bear in mind from the get-go I said I'm not into this thin metal stuff. So let's see if I can improve on that. Well, it's not brilliant, but I think everybody would agree that it's a lot better than that, right? So I'm just going to keep welding along gently, just making it a bit better than that shite. So at this point I'm patching up a bad job, really. But I never said I wanted to get into this. You know, he bought this part. It was obviously a testament to the fact that I said I didn't want to get into this, but it's just a real shame. I am, however, confident that the part has been acid dipped. There's holes in it, rust holes in it, but there's no active rust going on anywhere. And I can see that around where those rust holes are. The welding is obviously almost non-existent in most places, so I've taken it back where it needs doing, and all I've done is added weld, basically. I've added a lot of strength to it, so it is now a solid, untidy repair, really. All of that stuff will be hidden away. The stuff you'll see will be absolutely fine, so it was just a bit of a grim job to do, really. This is a bit of a low point. I don't enjoy doing this sort of work. I'm not very good at it, and I told him I didn't want to do it. So buy a new bulkhead, £1,600 galvanised bulkhead. Paid £1,000 for this one, and it's just annoying me. So I've done a load of welding on it. It's a bit better than it was, but I'm not very good at this. I mean, it's okay. So I've banged a load of seam sealer all over it. I'm going to do stone chip next. There's only a little bit of the bulkhead seen, so I'll make sure that it's as rust proof as I can make it, and then as good as I can make it on the bits you'll see, and we'll go from there. There we go, that's all done. It's got that lovely textured surface, like mega orange peel. But yeah, it's a cool look, I think. It looks good. It's going to all paint the same colour, so those are the areas that rusted away because they've got the repairs on them. So those should be well protected now. Right, that's had 2 coats of stone chip now. It's a nice hard surface, and it was blasted in the direction that the stones will fire at that. It's covering the bits which most readily rust out down here. On the old bulkhead, basically where the wheels fire up at the bottom of the bulkhead. So I'm happy with I'm not happy with it, but I've done some welding on it to make it better. It's solid. It's just a bit of an MOT patch-up job rather than a nice restoration. At this point, I discovered a couple of pinholes of rust in the top, and I was going to body fill them, but I thought better of it, actually. So I've gone with seam sealer. I'll explain why in a minute. But it's always satisfying to see this sped up so much quicker. It's so much easier watching it like this. Right, I've changed my mind and seam sealed it because it looks like it's been acid dipped. So all the corrosion's gone, but there are a few little pinholes left along that seam in there. I was going to fill it, but actually this seam sealer is going to offer much better protection. But it doesn't look as good, clearly, and it can't be sanded back. But I've discovered it doesn't really matter. The windscreen hangs quite far above that with these bolts done. And there's a very nice thick foam strip in there. So, in order to try and prevent that corrosion, completely, why not put seam sealer in the nook where the water's going to collect? The windscreen actually has a little shelf here, so no rainwater should get in there. But I think it's condensation from the inside of the car windscreen. And this car isn't going to be driven out very much outside at all. I'm sorry, in the cold at all. But when that condensation does run on the windscreen, it's now going to sit in the seam sealer, not on the metalwork, or draining into the interior of it. So the reasoning for using seam sealer and not filler, in which case, seam sealer being ugly and filler, you can tidy it up. Well, I couldn't actually see any of this corrosion until I took the windscreen off. It was completely hidden. So none of this will be on display. And it's gone so badly through here where the water's sat that the seam sealer is actually going to be a good thing to have in there. So there we go. That's a little bit of sanding now, and really when that's all dry, then it's a major clean up and prime. So when I was spraying the stone chip, obviously there's a little bit of overspray down here. There's a few bits where the paint's chipped, so I'm just sanding it back so it's all smooth. So again, this was very satisfying, knowing I was getting towards the end of this. I think I'd discovered all the bad stuff by this point, and I was working on, well, I'm approaching paint now, so nice to have that behind me. The stone chip obviously is very satisfying to get that on. It makes everything look amazing. So that's it now. It's only these edges you'll see, so that the edge where the door bolts, where I am now, look, and the very upper front of it, above where the bonnet sits, and the two windscreen mounts. Very little of it is actually seen, so that's good. So I'm just making sure the paint, where it goes from bare metal to paint, where there's a chip, you've got to rub down those edges, otherwise you see them, they come through the paint, you know. So it all has to be smooth, otherwise, yeah, if you can feel it, as a rule, if you can feel it, you'll definitely see it when there's paint on there. So that is it. Cleaned it down, with a cloth, degrease it, and on goes the primer. Very satisfying indeed. The primer went on pretty well, I think, actually. The paint, not so much. It seemed to want to unmix itself, which is a weird thing, but you'd mix it, see if it was nice and uniform, and very easily it seemed the substrate in the paint, the glue in the paint, and the actual pigment would seem to separate. So not that there was many runs there, but there was a run on the door where I sprayed on my workbench door just to test the gun, and you can see where it's run, that the pigment is run further than the glue, if you like, than the body of the paint. So it's weird stuff. It seemed to want to unmix very easily, but you might have noticed I had the gun on a bit slow there, but it's gone on nicely without any runs, so I'm very pleased with that. And this is my neighbour here who came around to help me fit it, and very satisfying it was too to get this on there. The bolts needed a little persuasion, but obviously they lined up nicely now compared to how it was when I first fitted it. I've moved them by something like half an inch, I think. So he just used a little bit of wood to knock that one in, encourage it into place. Actually, the cameraman I'm filming on now, and it fell off. He said it fell on the floor. And then the other one, and then there's a little celebratory noise I make, which is sped up 4 times. And the job is done. It's loosely flapping around the upper bolts, but it is done. There you go. Thank you so much for watching this far, folks. In the next episode, we start putting things on there, which is so satisfying. We really are at this sweet end of the restoration now. Hope you're enjoying the videos. Bye for now.